May I begin this meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, this beautiful land that we're meeting on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. My name is Meredith Doig. I'm a member of the National Committee of the Australian Republic Movement. And on behalf of that committee, I'd like to welcome you here to what we think is a really exciting meeting here, the launch of the Australian Republic Movement model. Without further ado, and by the way, that model is the culmination of 2 years of research and consultation with over 10,000 people, but it's also the culmination of 20 years of work of previous generations of committees of the Australian Republic Movement. Can I now introduce the current chair of the Australian Republic Movement, Peter Fitzsimons.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Meredith, and thank you all for coming to what is an historic occasion at the already iconic location where our federation was first formally founded on the 1st of January 1901. May I begin with apologies to Abraham Lincoln, but seriously, six score years ago, our forefathers and mothers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in fealty to Great Britain, and dedicated to the proposition that while England and Australia could never be equal, Australia could have a rough kind of independence so long as it was chiselled into constitutional stone that the highest reaches of the English aristocracy would always have the power of oversight and veto to make sure the young colony didn't either get too uppity or lose its way. And it was all signed, sealed and delivered here at the Federation Pavilion. It was fine for the time, but the whole notion of being a British outpost became ever more outmoded, outdated and outrageous as the decades rolled by. We became ever more independent, proud of a history that is 65,000 years in the making, not a mere century or two. We became aware that we are so much more spiritually, politically and numerically than just transplanted Britons. We yearn to be rid of our last colonial vestiges and stand proud and independent beneath the Southern Cross. As you all know, in the late 1900s, 1999 to be exact, a referendum was held on a republican model to allow us to at last throw off our colonial garb. That model was rejected. Republicanism itself was not rejected. All the polls show, then and now, that the bulk of Australians are not monarchists, and the days of "we did but see her passing by, and yet we love her till we die" have passed us by. It was the model that was rejected. We needed a new model for a new century and a new generation, and this is it. One to put before the 5 million voting Australians who were too young, and in some cases not even born, to vote in the last referendum. We call it the Australian Choice Model and propose that every 5 years all of Australia's state and territory parliaments nominate their preferred candidate for our head of state, while the federal parliament puts forward 3 candidates, giving us 11 eminent Australians in all to choose from in a national ballot. This model ensures that Australia's most distinguished, respected and trusted citizens will be in the starting lineup for the Australian choice. At last, all Australian voters will be able to make a choice, an Australian choice for their preferred candidate, so that we as a nation finally have a complete government of Australians, by Australians, for Australians, and one that is directly accountable to Australians. The head of state will have no role in setting government policy or in the passing of laws. The Australian choice model ensures the role of the head of state is substantially ceremonial in nature, with the key role being to represent and embody the dignity of the Australian people, with powers limited to safeguarding and maintaining constitutional order and resolving political deadlock. The head of state would be elected for a 5-year term and be responsible for appointing as Prime Minister the person who has the majority of support in the House of Representatives, or calling an election if no one can obtain that support. This model has already passed 2 extraordinary tests, which I'll get to. Since the 1990s, the key ailing and even failing of the Republican movement has been the enduring schism between the direct electionistas, who wanted a full-on vote for all comers, and the minimalistas, such as myself, who only wanted one change, for the blessing of the PM's choice of Governor-General to come from the Australian Parliament rather than the English sovereign. In 1999, it was the minimalist model that was rejected by the Australian people. It's become the ARM's considered view, after wide consultation, that no matter how we dressed it up, the minimalist model would be rejected again. The same goes for getting up a referendum for a full-on direct election for all those who'd put their hand up to be head of state. It would fall over like a one-legged emu. Yes, people are still passionate for those two options, and there are diehards who will die hard. But it changes nought. Neither proposal would get up at a referendum. A way forward had to be found between the two sides, a way to bring us together, not divide us. And our best and brightest boffins, our most passionate and persistent people, our most committed committees and subcommittees and sub-subcommittees have painstakingly put it all together since. The first test passed. Against seemingly all odds, the Australian choice achieved unanimous support from our entire ARM National Committee. No matter that our people included die-hard direct electionistas and mad dog minimalists, everyone finished by agreeing that this is an Australian beauty, and no one took their hat, their coat and their umbrage to walk out in protest at the Australian choice model. Far from it, every one of them got behind it. Its second test, our constitutional advisory body, chaired by Professor Helen Irving of Sydney University Law School, and composed of some of our finest constitutional legal minds in the country, professors and legal scholars all drawn from across our brown and pleasant land, also with passionate views on the virtues of minimalism and direct election, were also unanimous in affirming that this is a legally sound model to bring us together as a nation, retain stability and guide us into the future under our own steam. We no longer need English oversight. We're Australians, robust, proud, strong, smart and independent. We can pick one of our own there on merit, not because of their high English bloodline. We can do this on our Paddy and Pat Malone. At a time when on so many fronts our nation is divided, this could be the national project to bring us back together on a unity ticket. I am, you are, we are Australian, and this is a uniquely Australian model we can get behind and be proud of. You will draw your own conclusions, but for my money, the unanimity with which we launched this Australian choice model is a triumph in itself. I take this opportunity to thank everyone who helped get us here. The modern founding fathers and mothers of republicanism, who got the idea of the republic going again in the 1980s and 90s. The winter soldiers, who kept the ARM going in singularly tough times in the wake of 1999. The donors, who have so generously given us the funds to continue. Particularly the ARM members and supporters who keep beating the drum and paying their membership fees, going to their branch meetings, telling everyone about it. The members of our Executive and National Committee who first decided 2 years ago that we had to come up with a model that would capture the Australian imagination and have worked on it since. The many thousands of Australians who put forward their own submissions into what it should look like. The aforementioned distinguished legal scholars who worked so hard to refine it. Thank you all, your blood's worth bottling. What would the founding fathers and mothers of 121 years ago think if they could see us now, here at the same place, making this proposal? Of course, we can never know, apart from I wonder why some of them are wearing masks. But I'd like to think it would be along the lines of, my goodness, how we've grown. No one, and I mean this, has worked harder on the whole thing than the ARM CEO, Sandy Beyer, and I invite Sandy forward to speak on the Australian choice.
Thanks very much, Peter. Our research has found that this approach, that 73% of Australians would vote for it. And that's far higher than any detailed proposal for a republic has achieved in the past. When we started this process, when we set out to create this approach, we wanted one that could unite Australians. And more than ever, we see Australians backing this model. This is Australians' choice. Our research shows that a majority of men and women, a majority of states, a majority of people across the political spectrum and across all ages are prepared to support this change. We even see that people who would generally vote no to a republic are prepared to get behind this change. This is a new era in the campaign for an Australian republic, and one that we're really glad to be sharing with you. It's truly now a change that we can all get behind as Australians. And with that, I'd like to open up to any questions that you might have of Peter or I or anyone else.
What's the rationale for the particular model? And can I just clarify, the nominations would come from the state parliaments or the government specifically? Where would they originate from?
The state parliaments, state and territory parliaments, and the rationale is, as discussed, I was a passionate minimalist. You know, I just wanted a tiny change. The answer is, after everything, it won't get up. There are very passionate direct electionistas. It won't get up. We had to find a way. So I took over 2014 into 15, and there was a great schism between everybody I talked to. Some said only this or I'm out, others said only this or I'm out. The great challenge was to find a model that will bring everyone together, and I could never believe it could be done as as well as this has been done, because so far we've lost no one. You know, like there's nobody that's resigned from any committee saying my way or the highway. Everybody so far that has looked at it has said, yeah, this will work.
And what's your view on, I know Labor at the last election put forward the idea that you would need to have a threshold referendum first. So, you know, you have a first referendum on should we be a republic, and then you have the second one on the model. Is that something you support, or how do you think this should be sort of put to the people?
Look, no model has as much support as the Australian choice model that we're putting forward today. 73% of Australians have said that they would vote for this at a referendum, and so we see no need to put forward any other options that couldn't get up at a referendum. This is Australians' choice, and this should be put towards a referendum vote.
And what about the broader issue of, you know, that there's this feeling that, people are not very kind of hot to trot on republicanism at the moment. You know, you can't really do it before the Queen dies. Everyone loves William and Kate, and, you know, there's just kind of no real, like the urgency or the mood for change is kind of pretty depressed.
Yeah. I love William and Kate. I love the Queen. I admire, no joke. It's not, people can be enthusiastic for the royal family. This is nothing disrespect for Her Majesty. Should we wait until Her Majesty passes away? Not for me. But people will say, why put it out now? Wait till she dies. The answer is we're ready. Whether we do it before the Queen passes away or we do it when she passes away, we have to have a model ready to go. And this is a model ready to go that's got the finest minds, legal minds in the country behind it. Lots of, I cannot tell you how many hours have gone into it, how many minutes, debates, memorandums, back and forth. So we've got a model ready to go, and the heartening thing is the extraordinary response we've had so far from everyone that has seen it. But, you know, on the issue of the Queen and William and Kate, we wish them well. They're English people. Good luck to them. Long may the Queen reign over them, but not us.
And in terms of support from the people who've seen it, does that include politicians, political parties? What have they said?
So far, if I can call it, the key stakeholders in the current parliament that are behind, that will be making the decisions about pressing go or stop, they're all right behind it.
And who are they?
So look, 60% of each house of the parliament supports a republic. We've been consulting really closely with all of them, and so our job over the coming years is to make sure that we work with them to make this change happen. They want to see Australia become a republic, and we want to work with them to make that happen.
Yep. Well, this is the new republic. Members of the public are welcome to participate. What have you got?
What's going to happen to all the state governors?
Yep.
That to be resolved. No, well, here you go.
Yeah. Well, look, we live in a democracy where each state has its own constitution, and so it'll be up to each state to make that decision, you know, for themselves. We're not talking about fundamentally changing anything about our federation.
Or the Westminster system. Or the Westminster system. The Westminster system stays intact. The states territory system stays intact. But basically what we're saying is we're 250 years in. We've been here for 65,000 years. It is time to run our own show. And can I say just quickly, there will be people who'll say, no, it's not time, we can't do it, etc., etc. There's always been people like that. How differently would we look at Argentina? For example, the proud nation of Argentina right now, if we thought every time that Argentina passed a law, it had to be signed off by the Spanish royal family. Wouldn't everybody go, what? seriously in the 21st century, we can run our own show. We all know it. We need a model that'll bring the two sides together, and we think we've done it. And this little one right here, okay?
Future Australia.
I want to say this little one right here, that I'm imagining 18 months, 2 years old, right now can be anything this little one wants to be, bar one thing. This little one cannot be the Australian head of state. Why not? Because this little one is an Australian. And the Constitution from 1901 specifically says you little Australians need not apply, okay? Because this is reserved for a royal family in England. It's the third decade of the 21st century. We need to move on. We've got a model, and there will be people who feel a bit grim about leaving behind direct election, leaving behind minimalism, but I'd ask them to stay together. This is the model that this generation has come up with. We're going to get this done. I think we can say thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.